Have you ever met a complete stranger and yet felt like you've known them forever? Something about their eyes feels familiar. The very first thing they say stirs something deep inside you. There's no clear reason, no logic behind it. But you know, this person didn't show up in your life by accident. It's as if, out of the billions of people in the world, they were meant to appear at the right time, in the right way, playing the right role. Why does that happen? Or maybe you've had a relationship that left you deeply hurt, even though you did nothing wrong. They confused you. They triggered your anger. They broke your heart in a way that didn't make any sense. And you might have asked yourself, why did I have to meet this person? Why did I have to go through this? But if you look through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, you'll see pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to awaken something within you, something you may have forgotten for a long, long time. And sometimes, the people you wish you'd never met turn out to be the very ones who light the path you're meant to walk. They don't show up to make you happy. They show up to challenge you, to teach you patience, to remind you to love yourself, and ultimately to help you let go of what no longer serves your growth. Every person you meet, whether they stay for years or pass by briefly, is part of your spiritual map. Each one is helping guide you back home, to yourself. In Buddhism, nothing is random. Every encounter, every connection, whether sweet or painful, is part of your awakening. And when you're willing to see life through mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, you begin to understand. No one enters your life by mistake. They're here to teach you something. So now, let's explore together why every relationship, the good and the hard, might actually be a spiritual teacher in disguise. 1. Relationships as spiritual classrooms. Here's something we're rarely taught growing up. Every relationship in this life is a spiritual classroom. We often think love is just about finding happiness. Friendship is about companionship. Family is where we're supposed to receive unconditional love. But the Buddha teaches, the people who come into your life are there to teach you. Whether they bring joy or heartbreak, they're playing the role of a very special teacher. Now, we usually think of a teacher as someone wise and inspiring, someone who shows us the way. But in Buddhism, even the person who hurts you can be your teacher. Not because they're right, but because they reveal a wound inside you that still needs healing. A middle-aged Buddhist practitioner once shared this story. He had a close friend from college. They went through everything together, ups, downs, dreams, failures. But as life moved on, their paths split. One day, the friend just walked away without explanation. It was devastating. There's a special kind of pain that comes when someone you trusted the most turns their back on you. At first, he was angry, then numb, then closed himself unable to trust anyone again. But after time spent in study, reflection, and practice, he began to see more clearly. That friend didn't come into his life to ruin it. He came to teach him a vital lesson, that trust must first be placed in oneself, that attachment when clung to leads to suffering, and that forgiveness is not a gift you give to others. It's medicine for your own heart. Some people enter your life to help you open your heart. Some challenge your patience. Some teach you what real forgiveness looks like, and some are simply there to teach you how to let go. Many of us believe a healthy relationship is one with no conflict, no disagreement. But the truth is, conflict is part of growth. A wife feels unheard by her husband. A father feels hurt by his son. A friend feels betrayed. These things are hard, but with enough awareness, we can begin to see they don't hurt us because they're bad people. They hurt us because there's something within us that is clinging, aching, or still wounded. The Buddha once said, "People are like mirrors. When you see faults in others, you're really seeing your own mind. If someone makes you angry, maybe they've touched a part of you that's been ignored. If someone makes you feel safe, maybe they're awakening compassion or trust that already lives inside you. And the most important truth, no one shows up by accident. Whether someone stays for years or only a few weeks, they come at the right time, with the right lesson, in the right role. A woman once shared this during a winter retreat. She had loved a man deeply. She thought he was the one, but he disappeared without a word. It shattered her. For years, she questioned her worth, lost her direction. But through years of mindfulness, silence, and healing, she realized he wasn't meant to marry her. He was meant to help her learn how to love herself. And that might be the hardest lesson of all. To love someone deeply and still let them go without losing your compassion. In Buddhism, love isn't about possession. It isn't about holding tight. It's about seeing each other as travelers, walking side by side for a while, then smiling and letting go when the path shifts. When you truly see it that way, you stop hating the ones who left. You stop blaming those who hurt you. You begin to feel gratitude for them, like you would for a teacher who challenged you to grow. I've spoken with many practitioners over the years, people who've been betrayed, heartbroken, or left behind. But after deep practice, they say, that person showed me who I really am. They hurt me, yes, but they also brought me into the meditation hall. If it weren't for them, I might never have found my way back to myself. So maybe right now, there's a wound in your heart, left by someone you once trusted, someone you thought would always stay, but they didn't. And now, you're still trying to figure out what to do with that emptiness. Let this remind you of what the Buddha said. Each person is a lesson. When the lesson is complete, they leave. When it's not, they'll return in another form. And when you truly grasp that, you begin to cherish every relationship, no matter how short, how messy, or how long-lasting, because they are not just companions. They are mirrors. They are guides. They are spiritual teachers, helping you walk the path back to yourself. 2. Seeing others through the lens of karma. There's one question that many people ask after going through a painful relationship. Why did I meet that person? Why did they walk into my life, bring so much hope, only to leave behind a wound I can't even name? And maybe the hardest part is when your heart still loves them, but nothing can be saved anymore. In Buddhism, nothing is a coincidence. A chance encounter, a passing glance on the street, someone who makes you smiler, someone who makes you cry. All of it is the result of karma. Not karma as in punishment, but karma as the flow of cause and effect that stretches across time, carrying with it the seeds we've planted consciously or not. When we see through the eyes of karma, we begin to understand the person who hurts you today might be someone you hurt a long time ago, not just in this life, but in a lifetime you no longer remember. And the one who makes you feel safe and warm might be a benefactor from a past life, returning now to continue the journey with you. There's an old story from the Buddhist scriptures about a monk who lived during the Buddha's time. He was deeply committed to his practice, diligent in his precepts, meditating every day. But oddly, every time a certain layperson came to the monastery to make offerings, the monk would feel this strange irritation rise up in him. The layman did nothing wrong. In fact, he was respectful, kind, and devout. But for some reason, just seeing him triggered the monk's anger. One day, the monk brought this up to the Buddha. The Buddha smiled and said, "Dear monk, in many lifetimes past, you and that man were enemies. Though you don't remember, the emotional imprint still lies deep within your consciousness. Now that you've met again, it's being stirred up. But if you practice mindfulness and let go of that aversion, you're breaking a cycle of karmic repetition. That story makes you pause, doesn't it? What if the person who's hurting you right now isn't a bad person, but simply a piece of unfinished karma being brought to the surface so you both have a chance to heal? They didn't come to make you suffer. They came so you could both face what was unresolved and untangle those inner knots, not with resentment, but with awareness. Many people have shared stories like this. They say, "I don't understand why I got pulled into such a painful relationship. I'm kind. I don't harm anyone. So why did I end up with someone who betrayed me, ignored me, or emotionally abused me?" But when they stepped into the path of meditation, when they began to see through the lens of cause and effect, they realized it wasn't a punishment. It was an opportunity to break the pattern of suffering, an opportunity to transform. There was a woman in her 60s who shared her story during a winter retreat. She had been in a long, difficult marriage with an alcoholic husband. He never hit her, but constantly made her feel small, guilty, and never enough. For over 20 years, she kept trying to fix things, hoping love would somehow heal them both. But in the end, she was exhausted. After the divorce, she turned to meditation, not to forget, but to understand why she stayed in that relationship for so long. And during a deep reflection on karma, she had a realization. Her husband didn't come to ruin her life. He came to mirror a wound within her, a part of her that had always believed, since childhood, that she wasn't good enough. He was the living reflection of a very old pain. From the past, from old criticisms, from karmic seeds that had never been healed. Thanks to that mirror, she finally began her journey home to herself. When we begin to understand karma, we stop blaming as much as we used to. Not because the other person was right, not because forgiveness is easy, but because blame changes nothing. Blame only thickens old karma. It keeps us stuck in the cycle of pain. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Hatred is never healed by hatred. Only by love is hatred healed." This is an eternal truth. When we keep hating the one who hurt us, we trap them in our hearts, like a wound that refuses to heal. But when we begin to see them as a part of our karma, not to excuse, not to forget, but to understand, that's when we can finally step out of the loop. And maybe, just maybe, we were once the one who hurt them too. No one is perfectly innocent across countless lifetimes. So when we meet again, instead of judging them, maybe we can softly say in our hearts, "I don't know what happened between us in the past, but if we're meeting again today to heal, then I'm ready to learn this lesson with a grateful heart." It's not easy to think that way, but that's the path of the awakened one. The one who understands that every relationship, whether sweet or bitter, is a chance to dissolve old karma and plant new seeds for a better future. 3. Self-compassion is just as important as compassion for others. There's something many people forget on the journey of learning how to love, and that is this: compassion also needs to be offered to ourselves. It's easy to feel empathy for a friend who's hurting, easy to forgive a loved one who said something out of line, even easy to be kind to a stranger going through a hard time. But how many times have we truly known how to hold ourselves when we're the one who made a mistake? There's this strange pattern in human behavior. When we mess up, we often become our harshest critics. Maybe it was a careless word that hurt someone, a moment of impatience that ruined a conversation, or silently withdrawing from a relationship that meant something. And then, in the quiet, the mind starts looping that familiar question. What did I just do? Why did I act like that? We beat ourselves up, judge ourselves, hurt ourselves, sometimes even more harshly than anyone else ever could. I once met a man who came to the monastery in complete silence. When asked what brought him there, he quietly said, "I hurt the person I loved the most, and I don't think I deserve forgiveness." They had been together for 15 years, but during a stressful time, he became distant, cold, and eventually, he walked away. Years later, when the storm inside him had calmed, when the walls he'd built started to fall, she was gone. In every sense of the word, he carried that guilt with him for years. No one punished him, but every day he lost a little more self-respect, a little more belief in his own capacity to love again. And then, one day, while sitting in the meditation hall, he heard a line from the Metta Sutta, Loving Kindness Sutra, that I believe touched something deep inside him. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. And he cried, not from guilt, but because, for the first time in years, he gave himself permission to feel loved again by his own heart. In Buddhist practice, compassion doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't say, this person deserves it, but I don't. True compassion is a flow unbroken, beginning within, then moving outward. If you can't be gentle with yourself when you fall, how can you truly forgive someone else? If you can't accept your own imperfections, how can you look at others with kindness? Self-compassion doesn't mean making excuses for your mistakes. It's not saying, I'm right, I don't need to change. It means creating a safe space within yourself, a space where you can look honestly at who you are, without judgment, a space where you can quietly say, yes, I said the wrong thing. Yes, I hurt someone, but I'm learning. I'm walking this path to understand and grow. In countless Dharma talks over the years, people often come and ask, how do I forgive someone else? But very few ever ask, how do I forgive myself? And that, right there, is the root of so much suffering. Because when we don't know how to love ourselves in the right way, we start searching for that love in others. When we can't forgive ourselves, we let other people define our worth. And when we haven't healed our own wounds, we carry those wounds into our relationships and end up wounding others, too. Self-compassion is not a luxury. It is the foundation of awakening. Only when the heart has softened toward itself can it hold space for someone else without defensiveness, without reactivity. Only then can we clearly see what's an old karmic pattern and what's the truth of this very moment. Only then do we have enough love, not just to survive, but to truly live with depth and presence. So please remember, no one enters your life by accident. But don't forget, you didn't enter this life by accident either. You're here to learn, to stumble, to get back up again, and to keep walking like a spiritual traveler, slowly finding the way back home. And along that journey, the love you offer to yourself, that gentle, forgiving love, is what will help you stay steady when life gets rough. 4. Even a chance encounter can be a message from the universe. Have you ever locked eyes with a stranger in the middle of a busy street? And for a brief second, your heart just skipped a beat? No words, no introductions, just a glance. A fleeting moment that passes quickly, yet leaves behind an odd feeling, like the universe just knocked on your door. Like something somehow was quietly reminding you of something deeper. In the rush of daily life, we tend to overlook small details. A short comment, a spontaneous smile, someone helping you pick up a dropped bag, someone showing up just when you were feeling lost. These things seem too simple, too ordinary, so we rarely pause to ask, was that really just a coincidence? According to the Buddhist teachings, nothing in this universe is random. Everything arises from conditions, cause and effect. A leaf falling as you sit in quiet thought. A bird landing by your window when your heart feels heavy. A stranger who sits beside you at a cafe and somehow says exactly what you needed to hear. You can't plan those moments. But when your heart is open, when you live mindfully, you start to notice even the most fleeting encounters carry a quiet whisper from the universe. There's an older woman who once shared her story at a Dharma talk in California. She was sitting alone on a park bench, completely drained after the sudden loss of her husband. At that point, she said, she no longer believed in anything, not love, not God, not even hope. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, was playing nearby. Suddenly, he ran up to her, handed her a bright red maple leaf, and said, "This is for you. It's really pretty." That was it. He ran off. But she cried, because in that simple gesture, in that bright little leaf, she felt like something or someone was telling her, life is still moving, beauty still exists, and you're still here. It's no coincidence that in meditation, we're often reminded to return to the present moment, because that's where the magic lives. Not in loud, dramatic events, but in quiet, subtle signs. A kind look from a stranger, a song that plays at just the right time, a short chat on the bus that somehow changes the way you see your life. The Buddha once said, "In this universe, nothing happens without a cause." Even the breeze that brushes across your cheek is the result of countless conditions coming together. So imagine the depth of meaning behind someone standing in front of you, looking at you, saying something, then disappearing from your life forever. When you slow down, open your heart, and listen with the ears of awareness, you'll begin to notice these tiny moments for what they really are, messages of interconnection. It's not superstition. It's not fortune-telling. It's a deep sensitivity to reality, a quiet knowing that we are being guided, not by someone outside of us, but by the flow of cause and effect itself, moving through every second. Someone once shared how he was about to leave his partner. The relationship felt broken. Layers of emotion, years of pain. One night, he walked aimlessly through the streets, and from a distant temple, he heard the faint sound of a bell soft, like a breath. No one invited him in. No one explained anything. But he turned back not to save the relationship, but to begin again with himself. Some moments don't need words. They don't need analysis. They carry an awakening all on their own. From a mindful heart's perspective, no encounter is too small. A stranger giving you directions. A bus driver smiling at you. A friend quietly saying, "I still believe you can start over." These are the gentle messages life sends, if we're still enough to hear. So as you walk through life, don't rush. Don't assume the person in front of you is just passing by. Don't think that a small moment can't change anything. Because in Buddhism, this very moment, the one you're living right now, might just be the doorway to awakening. 5. Mindfulness in presence. Every moment is sacred. In today's fast-paced world, maybe what's becoming rare isn't time, but presence. We still meet, we still sit at the dinner table, we still text and call. But how often are we truly present with our hearts, with our full attention, with eyes that pause and see? And then one day, it hits us. The people we love are still living with us, but we're no longer really touching them. Not because we're far apart, physically, but because our minds are somewhere else. wandering through to-do lists, clinging to old regrets, or rushing toward futures not yet here. And the person in front of us becomes just a shadow. In Buddhist teaching, mindfulness isn't some lofty thing meant only for meditation halls. Mindfulness means showing up fully right here, right now, with this person. No judgment, no rush. Not dragging the past, not chasing the future. Just being, fully present. A father once shared that he was technically there for most family gatherings, but his mind was always on work. His daughter would tell him about her day at school, and he'd reply with a distracted, eyes glued to his phone. Then one day, she stopped talking. No more drawings to show. No more tugging his sleeve, asking, "Daddy, are you listening?" And only then did he realize he had been there, but not really there. The truth is, we don't need grand gestures to nurture our relationships. Sometimes, all it takes is to pause, look into the other person's eyes, take a deep breath, let go of the noise in our heads, and really listen like they're the only thing that matters in that moment. And that simple act is a powerful gift. Because true presence is a form of love. When you're fully there, the other person feels it. I am seen, I am heard, I am accepted. Not because they're right, not because they need fixing, but because they need someone who's really there. Once, during a retreat, an elderly woman shared with tears in her eyes, "I tried to fix everything in my marriage. I read books. I sacrificed. I tried to talk it out. But what my husband really needed was for me to sit down, hold his hand, and just listen, without advice, without blame, without trying to fix." Then she paused, looked at her hands, and whispered, "I wish I'd realized that sooner." In mindfulness, every moment is sacred. No act is too small. A gentle nod, a soft gaze, choosing not to interrupt, eating breakfast together without checking your phone. That's where love grows, where trust is restored, where old wounds can finally begin to heal. The Buddha said, "When you walk, know that you are walking. When you sit, know that you are sitting." It sounds simple, but how often do we truly do that each day? And how many relationships slowly fade? Not because love is gone, but because presence is missing. Mindfulness doesn't ask you to be perfect. It only asks you to show up. Not to fix, not to respond, but to understand with your heart. There's a saying among mindfulness practitioners that I love: listen as if you know nothing about the person, even if you've lived with them for 30 years. Because every person is a river always changing. And if we're not present, we'll miss the very life flowing in front of us. In another retreat, a young man confessed he used to obsess over saying the right thing. Every conversation felt like a performance, like he had to fix, correct, explain. But eventually he realized people didn't need his intellect. They needed his heart. Listening isn't about debating. It's about connecting. Sometimes the deepest act of love is silence. If there's someone close to you who feels far away, try this. Sit with them, no phone, no agenda, no expectations. Just you, fully present. Because deep down, we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We all want to feel like we truly exist in someone's heart. 6. Forgiveness is about lightening the heart, not erasing the past. Forgiveness? It's a short word, but sometimes it's the longest journey we ever take in a lifetime. All of us, at some point, have been hurt. Maybe it was a friend who betrayed you, a loved one who turned their back, someone you gave your whole heart to who left without saying a word. And often, It's the people we trust the most who hurt us the deepest. So the question is, how do you forgive when the pain is still there? How do you move forward when the past still lingers? In the Buddha's teachings, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean denying the pain. Forgiveness means choosing to put the burden down because you no longer want to carry it. Not because the other person deserves forgiveness, but because your heart deserves peace. A man once came to the monastery on an autumn afternoon, leaves falling all around. He shared that he hadn't been able to forgive his father for 18 years, the man who walked out on the family when he was just a boy. Every time he thought of his childhood, all he could feel was emptiness, anger, and loss. His father had passed away long ago, but the anger, it was still alive like a shadow that wouldn't leave. We didn't ask him to forgive right away. We simply invited him to sit, to breathe, and to name the feelings honestly. No suppression, no rationalizing. Just gently touch the pain he had avoided for so long. And then, one quiet morning, walking slowly through the forest, he paused under a tree. He looked at a golden leaf about to fall and whispered, "I forgive, not for him, but for me." It wasn't some grand declaration. Forgiveness doesn't come all at once like a magic spell, but that moment was the first time he allowed himself to let go. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Hatred is never healed by hatred. It is only healed by love." This is an eternal truth. When someone hurts us, the first response is usually anger, then pain, then the urge to protect ourselves. And if we're not mindful, we carry that person around in our hearts like a thorn for days, months, even years. They may have left long ago, but the resentment stays. And it's you who keeps getting wounded. Forgiveness, in the light of Buddhism, is a union of wisdom and compassion. It's not saying, "It's okay, do it again." It's seeing clearly, I don't have to carry this forever. There's a beautiful Zen story. Two elderly monks were walking along a path when they came across an old woman who couldn't cross a muddy puddle. One of them gently carried her across. Later, the other monk said, "Brother, don't you remember we're not supposed to touch women?" The first monk smiled and replied, "I left her back there. Are you still carrying her?" We're the same. Something might have happened 5, 10, 20 years ago, but we're still carrying it, still replaying it every time we're exhausted, still letting old pain control our current emotions. Forgiveness is putting that loop to rest. It's saying to yourself, "Enough. I've walked with this anger long enough. Today, I choose freedom." Of course, not all wounds heal easily, and no one says you must forgive in a day or a month. But if today, you can whisper to yourself, "I want to let go when I'm ready," then you've already taken a deep step forward. Remember, forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it can change your future. When your heart is lighter, it opens. And when you're no longer bound to someone who left or a memory long gone, you can start showing up fully for those who are still here, right beside you. And if today you're carrying a hurt that you can't even name yet, you don't need to rush to forgive. Just be willing not to let it rule your heart anymore. 7. Not everyone stays, but everyone leaves a mark. Some people walk into your life like a breeze is soft, quiet, and leave just as gently. But somehow, they leave behind something you can't quite name. Maybe you met them just once, on a long flight, at a random meeting, during a short chat at a coffee shop, and then you never saw them again. But their words, their smile, the feeling they left you, carry it with you, like a silent pause in the music of your life. In Buddhism, we call that a karmic connection, not always to walk the whole path together, but to awaken something inside us. Not everyone is meant to stay, but every single person, no matter how briefly they appear, comes with a message, a lesson, a piece of your journey toward becoming who you are. There was a middle-aged woman in Oregon who once shared during a summer retreat. She had a colleague in it, a close friend, just someone she talked to during lunch breaks. But on their very last lunch together, that person said something she would never forget. You don't have to try so hard to be likable to everyone. Being kind to yourself is enough. After that, they no longer worked together. But from that one sentence, she started to change. How she saw herself, how she valued her worth, and how she had been abandoning herself just to please others. And you know what? That simple sentence from someone almost like a stranger lured her to meditation practice. It was the first seed. Small, but it sprouted. Life keeps sending us people like that. They don't come to stay forever. They come to help us cross a river, like a ferryman who helps you get to the other side and then turns back. They can't walk the rest of the journey with you. But do we feel grateful, or do we try to hold on? Sometimes it's the clinging that hurts the most. It's not that they left. It's that we weren't ready to let them go. We hold on to memories, to familiarity. We want everything to stay the same. But life is always changing. Everything that comes will eventually go. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. All things that arise must pass. Only awareness leads to true freedom. If we're mindful, we'll see. Every time someone leaves, it's a chance to look inward, to learn how to appreciate what we still have, to say goodbye with gratitude. And most importantly, to not let loss become a weight we carry forever. A young man once lost his mother when he was only 22. She passed away suddenly, no goodbye, no warning. For years, he carried the pain of things left unsaid, the love he didn't fully express, the teenage arguments he never apologized for. But one day, during a deep relaxation meditation, he realized his mother didn't need to stay for him to love her. Her love was already alive, in his habits, in his smile, in the way he treated others with gentleness. She wasn't here anymore, but she had never really left. Because the real mark someone leaves isn't in their physical presence. It's in the awakening they stir within you. If you've ever loved someone deeply and had to part ways, if you had a soul friend who suddenly couldn't walk beside you anymore, if you lived with someone, your parent, a sibling, a partner, and they passed away or drifted without closure, please remember this. You don't need to hold on to them to hold on to their meaning. You don't need to grip the past to feel connected, because what truly matters never leaves. It lives on in you, in the way you continue your life, in how you love someone new, in the quiet gratitude you carry inside. Freedom doesn't come when you forget those who've gone. It comes when you can smile at the memory and move forward with a heart that has grown wiser. 8. Every person is a mirror reflecting your inner world. Have you ever found yourself overreacting to someone? Maybe it's a coworker who annoys you just by the way they look at you, or a family member who says one thing and suddenly you feel angry or small. They didn't insult you directly, but something about their presence unsettles you. From a Buddhist perspective, that's not random. Every person who shows up in your life, especially the ones who trigger you, might be reflecting a part of yourself you haven't been ready to face. They're a mirror, not meant for you to hate, but for you to understand. The Buddha once said, "It's not other beings who cause our suffering. It's our attachment and ignorance that give rise to pain." So the real question isn't, why are they like that? It's, why does this affect me so deeply? There was a man who came to the monastery one day, confused and frustrated. He shared that he constantly felt triggered by his boss, someone he saw as arrogant, dismissive, and overly critical. Every time he was around that boss, his heart would race, his voice would shake, and his confidence would crumble. After a few sessions of meditation, deep, quiet reflection, he began to see something he'd never realized. His boss reminded him of his father, a strict, demanding parent who had pushed him for perfection his whole life. Beneath his reactions was an old wound, a deep fear of being judged. And every time his boss acted controlling or critical, that wound was reopened. It wasn't really the boss that was the problem. It was the pain inside that hadn't healed. When he understood that, the anger started to soften. Not because the boss changed, but because he began to see him through another person. In daily life, you may come across people who make you feel jealous, insecure, or uncomfortable. Maybe you feel uneasy when others succeed. Maybe you feel restricted when others seem totally free. Those feelings aren't bad. They're signals, invitations. An invitation to turn inward with honesty and no judgment. A young practitioner once shared during a retreat, "My ex used to tell me I was too sensitive, and I'd always argue, saying they just didn't understand me. But through meditation and self-reflection, I realized I was using my sensitivity to protect an old fear of being abandoned. I didn't hate them. I just hadn't learned how to face that part of myself." You see, when you react strongly to someone, it's often not about them. They're simply reflecting back something unhealed in you. An insecurity, a past wound, a shadow you've never dared to name. And that's your moment to wake up. If you're brave enough to not turn away from those emotions, you might discover a deeper truth. That person is helping you see yourself more clearly. No one likes looking in the mirror when we're not at our best. No one likes seeing the unpolished parts of ourselves. But only when you're willing to look can you know what truly needs care. In Buddhist teaching, this is called self-inquiry. It means turning inward and observing your own mind and action when it comes into contact with the world. Not blaming, not running, just noticing and understanding. When you practice this, your relationships begin to shift in powerful ways. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer react so quickly. You no longer see others as enemies. Because now you know everyone, in some way, is showing you. And amazingly, as you begin to heal inside, the people around you seem to change too. Not because they've changed, but because your eyes see them differently. So if someone triggers you today, don't be so quick to label them as the problem. Instead, ask yourself, what are they reflecting back to me that I'm not quite ready to face? When you can ask that question sincerely, you're already standing at the doorway of transformation. 9. Difficult relationships are often the key to awakening. Everyone wants peaceful, sweet relationships. We all wish for companions who understand us deeply, family who always support us, a partner who's always gentle and kind. But when that's not what we get, when a relationship turns tense or painful, many of us begin to think, maybe I'm on the wrong path. Maybe they are the problem. Maybe I should just avoid relationships that hurt. But from a Buddhist point of view, conflict in relationships isn't a mistake. It's often an essential part of our journey toward awakening. There was a practitioner who once shared during an autumn retreat, "I used to think I'd grow when I found the right person, but I've realized it's the people who hurt me that have helped me grow the most." That's it, isn't it? Sweet love is pleasant, but it's adversity that shapes the mind. There isn't a single spiritual master who hasn't been cracked open by pain in relationships. No one learns patience just by reading about it. No one truly understands compassion just from a book. Those qualities grow when you've been hurt and choose not to hurt back. They deepen when you're misunderstood and choose to listen instead of defend. They emerge when you've been abandoned, but learn to stay with yourself. The Buddha himself was once a husband, a father. He knew deeply the bonds of love, family, and the pain of separation. When he left the palace to seek liberation, it wasn't because he lacked love, but because his love was so deep, he didn't want to keep loving in ignorance. That's why Buddhist teachings don't tell us to run away from hard relationships. They invite us to use them as doors into deeper seeing. There was a student in a meditation class who spoke of her father, a man who was always angry, harsh, never showed affection. She said, "Every time he shouted, I would shrink. I just wanted to stay away. But I've realized, without him, I would have never learned how to stop reacting. Without him, I wouldn't have discovered that love can begin with someone you fear if you're awake enough." So she began a simple practice, just sitting quietly beside him, not to please him, but to heal herself. And something amazing happened. Her father started speaking more gently, not because he had changed, but because the energy between them had shifted. We tend to avoid the people who bring us pain, but if you look closely, you might see they're the ones shining light on what's still asleep inside you. The one who makes you angry, they're revealing your attachment to how others should be. The one who makes you anxious, they're showing you where you still cling to control. The one who makes you feel small, they're reflecting the part of you that hasn't yet learned to love yourself. Every conflict becomes an invitation to wake up, not to tolerate what's harmful, but to see clearly, not to blame, but to understand more deeply. The Buddha said, "The lotus does not grow in clear water, it grows in the mud." The mud isn't bad. It's the condition that allows the lotus to bloom. And the muddy, messy relationships in your life, they are the mud. Disappointment, betrayal, jealousy, misunderstanding. If you're not buried in them, if you can stay mindful, you'll start to rise. You are not weak just because you've been hurt. You're only weak if you let that wound become a wall instead of a doorway into the depths of your own heart. And then when you walk through a difficult relationship, not by cutting it off, but by awakening from within, you'll discover you are no longer the same person. You're softer, but also stronger. You've learned how to love without clinging, how to forgive without enabling, how to stay grounded with a peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. 10. Every meeting is a seed of karma from many lifetimes. There are some encounters in life where the moment you meet someone, you just feel it. A strange familiarity. No long conversations. No shared past. Just one glance and you feel, I think I've known this person before. And sometimes your heart stirs right away. There's a pull, a sense of deep connection, even when your mind can't quite explain it. From a Buddhist perspective, this isn't random. This is karmic connection, a bond formed many lifetimes ago, now returning at the right time, in the right place, in the right form, to help you both learn, heal, or continue something left unfinished. The Buddha said, "There is no such thing as a coincidence when two beings meet. Every interaction, the eye contact, the spark, the beginning of a relationship is not just about this moment. It might be the echo of a connection that's been alive for a long time, through different bodies, different lives, but the same essence of consciousness." A woman once shared during a spring retreat. She had met a man at an art seminar. They spoke for less than an hour, yet she felt like she had known him forever. There were things she never said out loud, but somehow she felt deeply understood. Every word he said awakened fragments of memory that had no clear shape. Like they'd been close once, but the details were lost in time. She thought it was a soulmate connection, romantic karma. But shortly after, he moved away. No promises, no plans. And strangely, she didn't feel sadness. She felt gratitude. Because he didn't come to stay. He came to awaken something in her that had been asleep. Karmic connections can take many forms. It could be a friend you've just met but can open your heart to. A child that stirs your emotions even though you've never held them. An elder you deeply respect, even if they've done nothing to earn it. And yes, it could also be someone who hurts you deeply. Because in another lifetime, you may have hurt each other. And now, they return not for revenge, but for healing. A Zen master once told the story of two disciples in a monastery. They constantly clashed. Every meeting sparked arguments. Despite both being sincere in their practice, they simply couldn't get along. After observing for a while, the master said only one thing. You two have met long, long ago, but you've never truly listened to each other with your hearts. That one sentence changed everything. Because they realized they weren't just meeting now. They were continuing something that had never been resolved. And if they kept resisting each other out of ignorance, that thread of karma would repeat again in another life. The Dharma teaches, we are wanderers, crossing paths over countless lifetimes. Someone who was once your mother, your child, your friend, may now wear a different face. But the soul remains on the same wavelength. When you start to see life this way, your perspective softens. You no longer judge people by your first impression. If you feel a strange closeness with someone, honor it. If your heart reacts strongly to someone, pay attention. Maybe they've come to return a debt. Maybe they've come to give you a gift you once planted. Or maybe they're just here to walk with you for a short while, but long enough to change your whole direction. Karmic connections aren't always about romantic love. They might show up to teach you patience, to help you learn letting go, to remind you to return to your path, or simply to reflect a part of yourself you've forgotten. So, if today you feel an unexplainable bond with someone, don't dismiss it too quickly. Smile quietly to yourself and say in your heart, hello again. We've met before. 11. Learn to silently wish well, even to the ones who hurt you. There are people who've come into your life not to leave sweet memories, but scars that linger. Maybe it was someone you trusted deeply who turned their back on you right when you needed them most. Maybe it was a loved one, a partner, someone who promised to never leave but vanished without a word. The pain they left behind may not feel sharp anymore, but it's still there, like a small stone in your shoe. Not enough to break you, but enough to make every step a little heavier. We all have people like that in our lives. And for most of us, the first instinct is anger. Sometimes it simmers quietly. Sometimes no one even knows it's there. But anger, no matter how quiet, is still a prison. And the first person locked inside is you. In Buddhist teachings, anger isn't something to deny or hide. The Buddha never asked us to pretend to be kind. He simply said this: holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You're the one who gets burned first. That's why one of the most powerful and most difficult practices in Buddhism is this: silently sending blessings to the person who hurt you. It doesn't mean you're saying what you did was okay. It doesn't mean your pain wasn't real. It just means you're choosing to set the burden down. You're letting go of what you can't change with one quiet act. A simple blessing, whispered only in your heart. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be at peace. It sounds simple, but to say it truthfully without bitterness is a profound act of release. Because in that moment of blessing, something inside you shifts from clenched to open, from heavy to light, from victim to one who is consciously letting go. I remember a woman who came to the monastery with tired eyes. She told me her ex-husband had betrayed her and left her with 3 small kids. No warning, no closure. She no longer loved him, but the resentment stayed. Even after 5 years, she carried a quiet but heavy anger on that clung to her, silently. One day, during a metta, loving kindness meditation, everyone was guided to send love to themselves, then to loved ones, and finally to someone they struggled with. She hesitated, but softly she whispered, "May you be at peace." And then she cried, not because she had forgiven him completely, but because, for the first time in years, her heart felt spacious again. No more tightening, no more holding on. Forgiveness doesn't arrive as some grand moment. It's born from small, mindful acts repeated with compassion. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't need to write a letter. You don't even need to face them again. Just try this. Next time their image shows up in your mind, instead of letting anger pull you down, whisper a blessing instead. At first, it may feel fake, but if you stay with it, the energy inside you begins to shift. Not for them, for you. The Buddha said, "A heart full of loving kindness holds no hatred and fears no one." Loving kindness is a space where you no longer need to be guarded, where you don't need to keep someone trapped in your memory just to stay in control. Because now, you see clearly, anger doesn't protect you. It only keeps you stuck in the past. A young meditator once told me, "When I first started sending blessings to the person who hurt me, it felt totally fake. But after 3 months, I realized I didn't want to gossip about them anymore. And for the first time, my heart felt lighter than any excuse I had ever made." That's the quiet power of compassion. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need an audience. It just needs sincerity. And each time you offer a silent blessing, it's like removing one heavy stone from your own backpack. So if today you're still carrying the shadow of someone who once caused you pain, try just once to send them a blessing. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because you deserve to be free. 12. True love isn't about possession. There's a question many people carry silently in their hearts, even if they never say it out loud. If I truly love someone, how can I ever let them go? If we've been together for so long, shared so much, why do I still have to learn to let go? For a lot of us, love feels like holding on. Love means staying together until the end, never leaving, never changing. But life doesn't always work that way. And in the Buddha's teachings, real love isn't about clinging, it's about freedom. The Buddha said, "To love is not to possess. It is to wish the other person happiness 7, when that happiness no longer includes you." It sounds beautiful, but living it, that's hard. Especially when you've spent nights waiting, days hoping, and years building dreams together, only for the other person to choose a different path. I remember a student once shared her story during retreat. She had loved a man for 7 years. They had it all: joy, plans, memories. But one day, he changed. He wanted to leave, and she couldn't understand why. She tried everything to make him stay. She tried to be better. She thought, if I just love him enough, he'll come back. But in the end, he still left. And her world shattered not just because she lost him, but because she felt like she lost herself. So she turned to meditation, not to get him back, but to find herself again. And in one deep moment of quiet reflection, she saw it clearly. She didn't love him, she clung to him. She loved out of fear of being left. She didn't want him to be happy. She just didn't want to be alone. That realization cracked something open. From that point on, she began to learn how to love the way the Buddha taught. To love is not to hold on. To love is to care deeply for what's here, right now, with your full heart, but without trying to control how it ends. Like tending to a flower, you water it, you let the sunlight touch it. You enjoy its fragrance each morning, but you can't stop it from wilting, and you can't force it to bloom the way you want. All you can do is show up fully for the time you share, without demanding it stay forever. That is true love. When you love someone without clinging, without saying, "You must be mine," that kind of love may still bring pain, but it will never bring suffering, because suffering comes from attachment, from expecting someone to stay the same forever, from trying to make a river stand still when the nature of life is to keep flowing. One day, someone asked the Buddha, "How do I know if my love is true?" He smiled and said, "If you can love without needing the other person to belong to you, that is true love." Simple words, but so deep that many fall silent upon hearing them. Because most of us live with an undercurrent of fear. Fear of losing, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough. And when fear walks with love, it eventually becomes a burden for both people. I remember an elderly woman, now in her 60s, who shared this with me. Her husband had passed away when she was only 35. She never remarried, not because no one cared for her, but because, in her heart, he never truly left. But she didn't hold on to him with sadness. She carried him like a gentle light. In her meals, her smiles, the things she did for others. She said, "I loved him deeply enough to not need him to stay." That kind of Lavino promises no chains, no tears of control, may be one of the most beautiful forms of love there is. So if you're loving someone right now, don't ask, "Will they stay forever?" Ask instead, "Am I loving with freedom or with fear?" And if you've ever had to let someone go, remember this. Love doesn't disappear just because someone walks away. Love doesn't need physical presence to stay alive. Love is when you can genuinely wish someone happiness, even when that happiness doesn't include you. 13. No one comes to complete you. They come to awaken what you forgot. There's a belief many of us carry deep inside, sometimes our whole lives, that somewhere out there is someone who was born to complete us. Someone who will fill the empty spaces inside, heal the wounds we've carried, and finally make us feel whole. It sounds romantic. It's the story told in love songs, movies, and novels. But in reality, especially on the path of inner practice, that idea is just a sweet illusion, one that keeps us stuck. Because the truth is, you were never incomplete. No one is born to be someone else's missing piece. No one can carry the responsibility of making you feel whole from the inside. A middle-aged woman once shared her story in the meditation hall. She entered her marriage thinking, "Finally, I found the one who will make me happy." But as the years passed, not only did her husband not bring her happiness, he triggered parts of her that she had buried long ago. Her childhood wounds of not feeling loved, the pain of being abandoned, the fear of being left behind. She began to resent him. If only he loved me more. If only he understood me. If only he knew what I'd been through. And then, one day, she broke down. But in that breaking, she saw something clearly for the first time. That man didn't come to complete her. He came to wake up the parts of her that had been asleep. The unhealed parts. The parts still aching. the parts that were calling her home. In the Buddha's teaching, there's a powerful truth. Every interaction in life is a chance to awaken. The people who come into your life, whether to love you or to hurt you, are mirrors. They're not here for you to depend on. They're here to help you see yourself more clearly. Like the sound of a bell. A bell doesn't create mindfulness. It just rings. It's your listening that creates awakening. And once you start seeing others as mirrors, you stop chasing perfection in them and start turning inward to heal yourself. That's where freedom begins. A young man once told me during a winter retreat, "I used to think my ex was my soulmate, but after we broke up, I realized she came into my life to help me see the wounds I had from my mother, wounds I had buried for years." He paused, smiled, and said, "And thanks to her leaving, I finally learned how to stay with myself. Not everyone who enters your life will stay, but everyone brings a lesson. Some teach you how to love, some teach you how to forgive, and some remind you of this simple truth. You don't need to be completed by anyone, because your true nature is already whole, already radiant." The Buddha once said, "The mind is like the full moon, only obscured by clouds of ignorance." Sometimes, a person walks into your life like the wind, helping those clouds move so you can finally see that the moon was always there. No one can put that moon in your sky, but someone can help you see it again. And once you stop expecting someone else to make you happy, you begin to love in a more mature way. Not because you're empty, but because you want to share the richness inside you. You no longer need someone to be your missing half. You just want to walk beside them. Two full moons lighting up each other's world. So if today you feel a little lost or empty in a relationship, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I hoping they'll give me that I haven't yet given myself? That question isn't easy, but if you're willing to sit with it, you've already begun a sacred journey. The journey back to your own wholeness. And when you stop waiting for someone else to complete you, you'll finally see what the Buddha pointed to long ago. You were always whole. You just forgot. The people who pass through your life, whether they stay or leave, they're like bells of awakening. Not here to fill you up, but to remind you. Not to hold on to, but to reflect your truth and guide you home. Every relationship, even the painful ones, offers a chance to know yourself more deeply, to grow from your wounds, to return to yourself. And that is the path of emotional maturity. It's not about searching for your missing half. It's about slowly, gently returning to your whole self through awareness, love, and deep gratitude for those who've come and gone. So if you're in a season of letting go, if you're learning to move on from old relationships, gently remind yourself, I haven't been left behind. I'm simply being called back to myself. Thank you for listening to these reflections from Buddhism Seeds. If this video spoke to you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, share it with someone who may need to hear it. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice is what keeps our community alive. A space where seeds of wisdom and compassion are sown, one heart at a time. See you in the next video, and may your day be peaceful wherever you are.